Have you ever wondered why, even when you think positively every day, life seems stagnant, as if the universe were silent? There is a pain that few have the courage to name, the pain of believing with all your heart and still seeing nothing happen. You light a candle, write affirmations, try to keep your heart at a high frequency, but the days go by, and that invisible promise of abundance is not fulfilled. Deep down, it seems that there is a chasm between what you want and what you can live. And it is in this void that frustration sets in, not as a scream, but as a silence that says, maybe it is not for me. Most people who fail to manifest abundance are not making a mistake in their desire. They are making a mistake in their vibration. There is a huge difference between imagining a better life and vibrating in coherence with it, between wanting something with all your mind and being energetically compatible with it. Thinking positively alone is like trying to fill a river with buckets of water. It is an emotional effort that does not touch the field that truly creates reality, because what manifests is not the idea of what you want, it's the frequency of what you are. That's why so many spiritually conscious people still live in scarcity, because they carry within themselves an old emotional identity that silently sabotages everything they try to attract. This rupture between faith and reality creates a very specific kind of pain, a spiritual pain. It's not just about money or success. It's about feeling like the universe doesn't hear you, that your soul is trapped in a body that screams for something greater but can't touch it. You pray, you hope, you read, you seek, but still, everything feels stuck, as if there were a vibrational wall between you and what your heart once saw in a dream. It's in this border between hope and weariness that true transformation is born, not through more effort, but through a new state of being. Napoleon Hill called this definite purpose, a mental and emotional force so coherent, so aligned, that there is no room for doubt. He understood, before science confirmed it, that the universe responds to vibrational clarity. When your mind is united with your heart, when your purpose is not just thought, but felt, the world begins to shape itself around you. Joe Dispenza has translated this truth into the language of neuroscience. As long as your mind repeats the patterns of the past, you will continue to recreate the same present. To access the quantum field of the future, you must let go of the emotional identity that you carry to this day. It's not about what you want. It's about what you're vibrating while you want it. This is the central thesis of everything we're going to explore in the next few hours. Your thoughts don't create millions because they are stuck in an emotion that doesn't speak to abundance. You want the new, but you vibrate the old. You want to receive, but you vibrate fear. You want to manifest, but you vibrate doubt. And the quantum field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are. Thought without identity is illusion. Desire without coherence is resistance. Manifestation doesn't fail because you don't want it enough. It fails because your emotional body is still living in frequencies that contradict what your mind is saying. And that's why this video exists. To walk with you through this invisible terrain, to reveal with honesty and compassion the blocks you don't see. And more than that, to remind you that nothing is lost. Because real manifestation begins when you stop trying to appear and start allowing yourself to be. The journey is not about making millions. It's about becoming someone who manifests them with vibrational integrity. Together, we will walk through the 20 invisible portals that block your abundance. Each one holds a key, and each key is a mirror. What you'll see next is not a set of techniques. It's an invitation, a reminder, a reconnection. Because you're not here just to dream of an extraordinary life. You're here to remember that you're worthy of living it. The invisible error of vibrating lack while imagining abundance. There's a very seductive illusion on the path to manifestation, believing that imagining something strongly enough is the same as being in alignment with it. But there's a subtle and devastating deal. Often, when someone sits down to visualize wealth, freedom, prosperity, what is actually vibrating within the body is the opposite. What vibrates silently is the fear of remaining poor, the fear of never achieving it, the insecurity that whispers, "What if it doesn't happen?" This incoherence creates an invisible sabotage field, because the universe, the quantum field, does not respond to what you think on the surface. It responds to what your emotional body transmits as truth. If your intention is wealth, but your vibration is silent desperation, the field only replicates scarcity. You send out images of success, but you vibrate the pain of lack. And the field is neutral. It only returns the same frequency. This is one of the reasons why so many well-intentioned people end up feeling deceived by spirituality. They try, they visualize, they strive to keep their mind positive. But deep down, there is a wounded child, a tired adult, a disbelieving heart. And this heart is more powerful than any mental phrase, because it is the heart that vibrates. It is the heart that creates. It is the heart that shapes reality. Vibrating lack while imagining abundance is like trying to plant roses in dry soil. The seed may be good, the intention may be sincere, but the ground is not fertile. The soil needs to be prepared. It needs to be healed. You need to feel that you deserve to flourish. Only then can the seed of abundance truly germinate. That is why this is not an invitation to imagine more. It is an invitation to feel truthfully, to recognize where, even though you desire the best, you still vibrate with fear of the worst. And that is where the work begins. Because it is there, where it hurts, that the frequency needs to be reprogrammed, not to seem more positive, but to vibrate coherently. And then, yes, the field responds. Because it does not listen to words, it listens to vibration. And there is only real manifestation when what you feel is compatible with what you ask for. Why most people confuse visualization with self-deception. Visualization is one of the most recommended practices on the paths of manifestation. It is simple, accessible, and profoundly powerful, but it can also be a veil, a spiritual disguise that masks the distance between what you desire and what you vibrate. Many people believe that they are co-creating their realities because they imagine themselves every day living what they want. They see themselves in big houses, feeling free, smiling with prosperity. But internally, there is an absence of heat. There is a subtle, almost imperceptible coldness. The image is there, but the energy does not heat. Visualizing without emotional coherence is like trying to heat a room with a match. There may be light. There may even be a bit of beauty, but there is no transformation. The environment remains cold. Reality remains untouched, because the image by itself does not move the field. What moves the field is vibration, and vibration is not faked. Vibration is felt. It is lived. It is embodied. When visualization becomes just a mental practice, it enters dangerous territory, spiritual self-deception. The person believes that they are manifesting, when in fact they are just repeating scenes in their mind that do not speak to their internal reality. And the more they repeat, the wider the gap between what they imagine and what they feel grows. Visualization becomes a ritual of escape, an escape from the present pain, an attempt to control the invisible without transforming what is visible within themselves. This disconnection between image and emotion is what blocks thousands of manifestations, because the universe is not impressed by mental scenes. It responds to the real vibrational state of your being. You can imagine yourself driving a luxury car, but if, at the end of the scene, you feel emptiness, fear, doubt, or comparison, that is what the field captures, and that is what it returns. The true power of visualization lies in the union between image and feeling. When you see something and your body vibrates as if it were already real, when there is no anxiety, no rush, no doubt, just presence, just silent certainty. When the scene you imagine warms your chest with the same intensity as a happy memory, then, yes, you're not visualizing, you are vibrating. And this vibration is creative. It is quantum language. It is silent prayer. Therefore, the path is not to imagine more. It is to imagine truthfully. It is to feel wholeheartedly. It is to look at each image created and ask, what am I really feeling here? If there is a distance, do not reject it. Acknowledge it. Because only with vibrational honesty is it possible to access the field of true manifestations, the hidden energetic flaw. Wishing with fear of not being able to, There is a desire that carries within itself an invisible crack. It dresses itself in faith, but inside it trembles. It says, "I want to," but deep down it whispers, "What if I can't?" This is the contaminated desire, a legitimate impulse of the soul, wrapped in layers of insecurity, anxiety, and distrust. It is not pure, it is not clean, and for this reason, it does not vibrate in a straight line. It vibrates in confused, broken, misaligned waves. It vibrates doubt, urgency, and despair, hidden behind beautiful words. This type of desire is common among those who have already studied spirituality but still carry unrecognized emotional scars. It's as if the heart says yes, but the body says no. As if the soul asks for expansion, but the vibration insists on protecting itself from the pain of frustration. And in this conflict, the quantum field finds no coherence. It feels the request, but perceives the fear embedded in it. And this fear changes everything. The fear of not being able to achieve it creates a chaotic electromagnetic field. It destabilizes the original intention and contaminates the process of manifestation. It's like trying to walk with your feet tied together. You want to move forward, but your emotions get in the way. You think about abundance, but you feel scarcity. You desire, but you don't believe. And this incoherence blocks the creation of the desired reality. Desiring with fear is like sending a message to the universe with blurred letters. It even perceives what you want, but the frequency is too confusing to generate a clear response. And so, the return is silence. Or worse, more experiences that confirm the original fear. It's as if the field says, if this is what you vibrate, then this is what I'm going to mirror. To change this, it is not enough to simply try to wish harder. What needs to change is the emotional quality of the desire, the energetic root of what is being asked for, the silent feeling that accompanies the intention. When desire is born from a state of trust, it is light. It does not ask in a hurry. It does not demand in desperation. It flows. It surrenders. It already believes that what was asked for already is. And it is in this state that manifestation happens. Not because the desire was loud, but because it was coherent. Not because it was insistent, but because it was whole. When fear is removed from the equation, desire becomes a clear frequency, a clean vibration, an energetic signature that the field can identify and mirror with precision. And that is when the invisible begins to move. Because now, what you ask for is not only what you want, it is also what you are ready to receive. The paradox of intention. The more you force, the further you move away. There is a silent paradox that operates in the subtlest layers of manifestation. It is the paradox of forced intention. That intense, almost obsessive desire that believes that the more focus, the better the result. But what actually happens is the opposite. The more you try to push the manifestation with urgency, the further it gets away. The more you insist with tension, the more the field gives back resistance. The universe does not respond to your declared intention. It responds to your dominant vibration. And the dominant vibration is not expressed in what you say you want. It is expressed in what you feel while you wait. In what you vibrate when you think it has not yet arrived. In the emotion hidden behind your desire. Forced intention is born of fear. Fear of wasting time. Fear of being left behind. Fear of not being seen, heard, or deserving. This fear disguises itself as determination, but vibrates anxiety, vibrates doubt, vibrates scarcity. And so, instead of bringing you closer, it pushes you away. Instead of attracting you, it repels you, because the field does not move due to the intensity of your demand. It moves due to the subtlety of your confidence. When you force a desire, what you really communicate is that you still do not believe it can come naturally. You try to compensate with control for what your vibration does not yet support with surrender. And the field notices. It always notices. Because it doesn't matter how much you say you are ready. What matters is the frequency your body emits when no one is looking. And if that frequency is one of urgency, the field will mirror exactly that. An interrupted flow, a stuck reality. True manifestation is paradoxical because it requires presence and detachment at the same time. You need to desire clearly, but not needily. You need to intend firmly, but not desperately. You need to ask with an open heart. And then allow, trust, breathe. Let the field organize what you cannot control with your hands. It is in this space of no force that the miracle reveals itself, not as a reward for effort, but as a vibrational response. You stop being someone who runs after what you want and become someone who attracts what you are. Because now, your intention is no longer contaminated by fear. It is aligned with surrender. And where there is surrender, there is space for the invisible to become form. No struggle, no wait, no delay, just the natural flow of what is already yours, coming to you. The neuroscience of manifestation, how dopamine betrays your vibration. Inside your brain, there is a refined system that records expectations, rewards, and behavior patterns. This system is regulated by chemicals you already know, such as dopamine. What may not be clear yet is how it can silently sabotage your manifestation journey, even when you believe you are doing everything right. Because dopamine, although often celebrated as the pleasure hormone, is also the fuel of anxious expectation. And anxiety, even when masked as enthusiasm, vibrates lack, vibrates distance, vibrates not yet. Every time you imagine success and feel that peak of mental pleasure, something subtle happens. The brain registered this image as if you had already obtained the reward, but in practice, nothing has changed. The bank account remains the same, the reality around you remains intact, but your internal system has experienced an illusion of achievement. This illusion creates an addiction, an invisible cycle of dopamine that makes you return, every day, to visualization, not as a practice of deep connection, but as a way to seek that small emotional relief. And then, without realizing it, you begin to confuse vibration with excitement. You begin to confuse spiritual connection with chemical peaks. And this is dangerous, because the quantum field does not respond to your momentary pleasure. It responds to sustained coherence, to constant vibration, to a state of being that remains, even when there is no external stimulus. In this context, dopamine becomes a silent betrayal. It convinces you that you are vibrating high, when in fact, you are just surfing a chemical wave that will soon disappear. And when it disappears, what is left? There is emptiness. There is frustration. There is comparison. There is that feeling that you did everything right, but nothing happened. And that is when many give up, because they do not understand that they were addicted to the peak and not committed to the field. They were not vibrating consistently. They were just visiting the frequency, like someone who enters a bright room and leaves before it warms up. True manifestation is not about punctual intensity. It is about vibrational stability. It does not matter how many times you felt pleasure when imagining something. What matters is how much your energetic identity has stabilized at that frequency. If you need constant stimulation to believe, you are not yet manifesting. You are seeking external validation. You are feeding a brain addiction that sabotages your ability to create with depth. Joe Dispenza explains this accurately. The brain that repeats past feelings, even within future images, is only recreating more of the same. There is no point in imagining the new with your body still attached to the old. There is no point in projecting abundance if your internal structure still vibrates with need, because the field does not respond to the image. It responds to the electromagnetic field generated by it, and this field is only strong when it is born from the coherence between emotion and intention. That is why true practice is not in imagining more. It is in being more, sustaining more, embodying more, not as an explosion of enthusiasm, but as a silent state of certainty, a silence that vibrates fullness, a calm that says, I already am, I already have, I already vibrate. And in this place, there is no dopamine, there is presence, there is truth, there is reality under construction, no euphoria, no addiction, just clean frequency. And that is all the field needs to start responding to you. The forgotten truth behind the law of attraction. For a long time, the law of attraction was interpreted as a magic formula, a cosmic code where all you had to do was wish hard, visualize often, repeat affirmative phrases, and wait for the universe to do the rest. This idea spread like wildfire, seductive, fast, seemingly accessible, but over time, many began to realize that something was not right, because even wishing intensely, even repeating with faith, even visualizing constantly, the results did not come, and what was supposed to be a path of expansion became a cycle of frustration. The forgotten truth behind the law of attraction is that it is not magic, it is resonance. It is not about convincing the universe with words. It is about tuning into the reality you want to live. And this tuning does not happen in the realm of thought. It happens in the realm of vibration. It happens in the realm of emotional identity. It happens in your state of being. You do not attract what you desire. You attract what you sustain, that which you are capable of maintaining emotionally, that which your nervous system recognizes as familiar and safe. Abundance, for example, does not manifest just because you want it. It manifests when you already vibrate as someone who feels worthy of it, when you move as someone who already has it, when you think, feel, and act from an internal structure that does not reject what you asked for. That is why the law of attraction fails for those who try to use it without an emotional foundation, because wanting is not enough. Repeating's not enough. Imagining is not enough. The universe does not deliver what you want. It mirrors what you are. And if your vibrational field is full of insecurity, fear, doubt, comparison, or resistance, that is what will be amplified. Not as punishment, but as resonance. Only those who have the emotional structure to sustain what they asked for can truly manifest. And this structure is not built with affirmations. It is built with truth, with consistency, with silent work of internal healing, with facing the fears that still vibrate in the dark corners of the soul, with the firm decision not only to desire a new future, but to become someone who vibrates that future here and now. This is the part of the law of attraction that few have the courage to teach, because it does not sell quick promises. It demands depth. It demands vibrational responsibility. It demands that you stop being a spiritual beggar and become a conscious co-creator. And this process, although simple, is intense. It confronts the ego, breaks old patterns, reorganizes the way you relate to time, to deservingness, to reality, and then, slowly, everything changes. Because now you are no longer trying to attract something distant. You are becoming a coherent magnet, a being in full resonance with what you asked for. And the field, upon realizing this, responds, not as a miracle, but as a consequence, not as a reward, but as a natural reflection of your new frequency. And it is at this point that manifestation stops being an effort and becomes a flow that is born from within, and that never stops. How your belief system acts as an unconscious vibrational filter. There is something more powerful than conscious thought when it comes to manifestation. It is the silent set of beliefs that you carry within you. Beliefs that are not written on the walls of your mind, but etched on the walls of your emotional body. They live in the way you react, in what you avoid, in what you doubt. They live in what you consider possible, in what you believe you deserve, in what you believe you are capable of maintaining. Your belief system is an invisible filter. It doesn't stop you from wishing, but it does determine how much of that wish can pass into reality. It works like a lens. You can point your intention toward the brightest future, but if that lens is tainted by beliefs of unworthiness, fear, scarcity, or guilt, the image that emerges will be distorted. It will be smaller. It will be a reduced version of what you could actually experience. What you silently believe about money, for example, has more impact than any affirmation you say out loud. You can repeat daily that you are prosperous. But if, internally, you associate wealth with loss, isolation, selfishness, or guilt, your vibration will close, not out of malice, but out of self-protection. The unconscious often rejects what it believes can hurt you, and so you sabotage yourself without knowing it. That's why it's not enough to want it. You need to investigate, observe, understand what stories are still being told inside you. Stories that began in childhood, in school, in religion, in the pain that shaped your worldview. Maybe you learned that you have to suffer to win, or that too much money corrupts, or that success attracts envy. Each of these beliefs, even if they seem small, vibrates in your field, and the field listens. This process is not about accusing the past. It is about freeing the present. It is about understanding that your beliefs are not sentences. They are just programming, and all programming can be rewritten, not with force, but with awareness, with repetition aligned with emotion, with new experiences that prove to your nervous system that there is another way, that it is safe to grow, that it is possible to prosper without losing love, without giving up your essence, without betraying your soul. When your belief system begins to vibrate in harmony with your desires, something realigns in the field. The filter stops distorting and starts to amplify. You stop hiding from abundance and start to receive it, not as an exception, but as a natural reflection of your new state of being. And then, finally, what you think, feel, and believe come together. And it is in this union that true manifestation happens, not as an effort, but as an expression, not as a miracle, but as a coherent, vibrational response. Waiting for signs from the universe without taking action. There is a comfortable silence that many confuse with faith. A space where you wait for the universe to send a clear signal, an indisputable confirmation, a push from the invisible that finally authorizes the next step. But often, this silence is not faith. It is paralysis. It is fear disguised as spirituality. It is a disguised wait, where time passes and nothing happens, not because the universe did not respond, but because you did not move. This spiritual wait often becomes a subtle form of procrastination, a pause that drags on indefinitely, sustained by mystical justifications that, although beautiful, hide an uncomfortable truth. The universe does act, but it acts in response to your movement. It mirrors, it amplifies, it directs, but it does not replace your part. It does not act in your place. When you wait for the field to bring you all the certainties before taking the first step, you are energetically saying that you still do not trust. You are stating, even without words, that you do not believe it is safe to move forward in doubt. And this is a vibrational incoherence, because every manifestation requires risk, it requires surrender, it requires action even without guarantees. It requires faith not only in the invisible, but in yourself. The universe does not signal all the time with flashes and magical coincidences. Sometimes it speaks of fatigue, in the repetition of the same cycles, in the feeling of stagnation. It whispers through discomfort. The lack of movement is often already the answer. It is already the call. It is already the signal. And to ignore it in the hope of something more spectacular is to continue to be trapped in the cycle of non-change, waiting for the perfect sign, for clear synchronicity, for the exact alignment of external circumstances is, in many cases, the reflection of a mind that does not yet believe it is capable of creating its own reality. It is the hope that something outside will validate what has already been felt within. But manifestation does not wait for proof. It begins with decision. It begins with action, with intention. It begins the moment you honor your intuition with attitude. True spirituality is not passive. It is receptive, but also responsive. It recognizes the flow of the universe, but understands that the body is an instrument of achievement, that the soul acts through the hands, that the divine will manifest itself through your conscious choice. And it is in this combination of listening and movement that reality begins to transform. So perhaps the sign you are waiting for is this moment, this tiredness, this restlessness, this desire to change that does not disappear, because the universe does not shout, it whispers. And sometimes, the greatest sign is the silence that bothers, the feeling that if you do not move now, everything will remain the same. And perhaps this feeling is already the answer. It is already the invitation. It is already the beginning of something new, vibrating, not in waiting, but in inspired action, in the silent confidence of those who know they are not alone, and that the universe accompanies each step of those who finally decide to walk. The vibrational mirror technique. There is a constant reflection happening around you, even when you don't realize it. Every person who crosses your path, every situation that provokes an emotional reaction, every detail that touches your nerves or activates your enchantment carries a vibrational mirror, a direct reflection of the frequency you are emitting. What attracts or bothers you in others is not about others. It is about you. It is about what still vibrates inside, even if silently. Often, what irritates us in others reveals an unconscious pattern that has not yet been healed. A hidden judgment, an old pain, a fear masked as anger. And what fascinates us reveals something that we have not yet accepted in ourselves. A denied potential, a light not yet recognized. The vibration that is activated in these encounters is not random. It is a portal, a reminder, a chance to see what has not yet been integrated. The quantum field is mirrored. It returns through relationships, the internal states that call for awareness. That is why cycles repeat themselves, that certain people appear with the same patterns, that certain emotions return even when everything seems different, because it is not about the outside, it is about the inside. It is about what vibrates and, therefore, attracts itself, what has not yet been transmuted and therefore manifests itself. This mirror is not a punishment, it is a compass. It points out, with precision, where the vibration is misaligned, where desire and identity do not yet walk together, where intention does not find emotional support. And recognizing this is not blaming yourself. It is freeing yourself. It is realizing that life is not testing you. It is showing you that the universe is not against you. It is reflecting, and that each reflection can be used as a portal of transformation. When you look into these mirrors with courage, something changes. Because you stop fighting the world and start aligning with it. You understand that every irritation is a chance for healing, that every admiration is an invitation to expansion, and that every reaction is a vibrational indicator, not as criticism, but as a path, as a route that leads to your true center. And that is when the vibration rises, not through effort, but through clarity. Because now you are no longer blind to your own signals. You are conscious. You are awake. You are available to change not the other, but yourself. And when that happens, the field changes, because the field responds to your truth. And every time you embrace a mirror with love, your frequency rises, reality responds, and the invisible begins, little by little, to reorganize itself, not outside, but inside. Where everything always began, where everything will always return. Why mental silence is more powerful than affirmations. In a world accustomed to noise, to constant thinking, to the repetition of phrases as if they were spells, silence seems like a waste of time. It seems ineffective. It seems like passivity. But in the dimension of manifestation, mental silence is not absence. It is pure presence. It is space. It is alignment. It is the field being touched without noise, without dispute, without words. Because contrary to what many believe, it is not the excess of affirmations that creates a new reality. It is the depth of the vibration that you sustain when thought stops and being emerges. Mental silence accesses a field where all possibilities already exist. It is in this space that the mind stops trying to control and starts to allow, that the body relaxes and becomes a bridge, that the heart listens to what logic cannot translate. It is in this silence that you become a channel, not a constructor, a permitter, not a forcer, a creator, not a reproducer, because silence is not empty. It is the fertile soil where the new frequency germinates. Affirmations, however beautiful they may be, often serve only to calm the doubting mind. They are attempts to convince the unconscious of a truth that has not yet been felt. And while this can play an important role, there is a point where excessive repetition becomes noise. And this noise prevents immersion. It prevents true attunement with the field. It prevents listening to what is really vibrating within. Silence, on the other hand, reveals. It shows where there is still fear, where there is still resistance, where emotion is not yet aligned with intention. It does not disguise, it exposes, but it exposes with kindness. with gentleness, with presence. And this exposure allows transmutation. It allows truth. It allows connection with that which is beyond the mind. When you learn to remain in silence, you begin to perceive the difference between thought and frequency, between control and flow, between mental image and state of being. And it is in this state that the field responds. Because now there is no noise, there is no disguise. There is coherence, there is surrender, there is attunement with something that goes beyond language, that is purely vibrational, purely creative. This silence is not the absence of action, it is the beginning of true action, the action that is born from within, that does not come from anxiety, but from clarity, that does not seek proof, but recognizes signs, that does not wait for external authorization, but is guided by internal certainty. It is in silence that desire transforms into decision, that doubt dissolves, that presence settles. And where there is presence, there is creation, because the field does not respond to what you repeat. It responds to what you are, when you are not trying to be. And in this place of effortlessness, the impossible approaches. Time bends. Life reorganizes itself. Not because you shouted louder, but because finally, you became silent enough to hear what the universe always wanted to give you. And now, with a quiet mind and an awake heart, everything begins to vibrate in your name, in silence, but with truth. And this truth is the beginning of everything. The factor that Neville Goddard calls embodied consciousness. Neville Goddard didn't just talk about imagination. He talked about embodying states of consciousness, about living internally what you desire externally. For him, imagining was just the beginning. The true power was in feeling yourself being, in assuming the vibrational identity of what you seek, not as a mental game, but as an integral experience, a fusion between thought, emotion, and body. Because it's not enough to visualize. You have to inhabit. It's not enough to want. You have to be. Embodied consciousness is the point at which manifestation becomes inevitable. Because when you truly believe that you already are what you desire, your vibration changes, your field changes, your language changes, your posture, your thoughts, your decisions, everything begins to align with this new identity, not through effort, but through coherence, because now you are no longer trying to achieve something distant. You are living what is already true for your frequency. This is the secret that differentiates those who manifest with ease from those who are frustrated with techniques. Those who inhabit the desired state do not wait. They breathe differently. They walk differently. They think like those who already have it. They react like those who have already achieved it. And this alignment generates an electromagnetic field so strong, so coherent, that the universe responds. Because the field does not respond to what you want to achieve. It responds to what you have already decided to be. Embodied consciousness demands something profound. Surrender. Surrender to the version of yourself that still scares you, that still seems distant, that still bothers your ego, accustomed to limitations. But it is precisely this discomfort that signals transformation, because leaving the old self to inhabit the new requires dying a little. It requires giving up the story of scarcity, the identity of those who try, the narrative of those who almost do. And that is not easy, but it is liberating. When you embody the consciousness of abundance, for example, the fear of lack begins to disappear. Not because everything has changed around you, but because your internal vibration no longer supports scarcity. And since the field is resonant, it begins to respond to the new frequency. The same happens with love, with health, with freedom. What changes first is your being, and the universe just follows suit. Neville said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled." Meh, but this feeling cannot be superficial. It needs to be organic. It needs to come from the body, not just the mind. It needs to involve breathing, posture, decision, presence, because embodying a new consciousness is living as someone who already knows, as someone who already has, as someone who already vibrates. And it is in this state that time bends, that reality approaches, that manifestation ceases to be an attempt and becomes a reflection of a being that no longer asks for anything, because it already is. And because it is, it receives, without effort, without haste, only by vibration, by truth, by identity aligned with what is already yours. How your body posture influences your energy field. There is a silent language that the body transmits all the time. Even before you say a word, your body is already vibrating. It is already announcing to the field what your state of being is. This vibration does not depend only on what you feel, but on how you move, on how you occupy space, on how you breathe. Because the body is not only a vehicle, it is also a transmitter, an amplifier of your emotional and energetic frequency. The physics of intention also manifests itself in biology. Your electromagnetic field is shaped by small gestures, by repeated postures, by body patterns that have been created throughout your history. When you walk hunched over, for example, your body vibrates with withdrawal. When your shoulders are tense, your field vibrates with defense. When your chest is closed, the vibration is of protection, fear, and distrust. And this, even if unconscious, directly interferes with your ability to attract and sustain what you desire. On the other hand, when you move like someone who is confident, something changes. The field expands. The vibration opens. The energy organizes itself in a cleaner and more coherent way. And this change doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes, it all starts with the way you breathe when you wake up, with the way you look at yourself in the mirror, with the rhythm of your steps, with the silent decision to occupy your body as someone who already is what you want to be. The body stores memories. It remembers old pains, traumas, defeats, and shames that created subtle tensions. These tensions shape your presence. They shape your voice. They shape your vibration, and as long as they are not recognized, they continue to emit signals to the field, signals of fear, of limitation, of unworthiness. Therefore, profound manifestation also involves bodily liberation, a new pact with your own body, a pact of presence, of lightness, of respect. Assuming a new posture is not just about raising your spine, it is about energetically affirming that you are ready, that you allow yourself to receive, that there is nothing inside you that wants to hide. When the body aligns with the intention, the vibration strengthens, the field stabilizes, and reality begins to respond. Not because you shouted louder, but because your presence became clear. Because now, your energy and your structure say the same thing, and this coherence is magnetic. It all starts with the body, because the body is the first to react to what you believe, and also the first to signal to the field what you are prepared to experience. Therefore, before even changing your thoughts, perhaps the invitation is another. Change the way you inhabit yourself, how you walk, how you breathe, how you occupy the now. Because when the body vibrates presence, the universe feels it. And when it feels it, it moves towards you with precision, with fluidity, with the same clarity that you chose to emit. Napoleon Hill's invisible master metaphor. Napoleon Hill, in his studies on the power of the mind and the science of success, described a little understood but deeply symbolic practice: the creation of an invisible council, an imaginary circle formed by great minds from history with whom he would converse mentally, seeking wisdom, guidance, and inspiration. It may seem like an eccentric technique at first glance, but on subtle levels, what Hill was doing was activating a frequency. He was placing himself vibrationally in the same field as those who represented success, genius, courage, vision. This practice is more than visualization. It is vibrational incorporation. By meeting with these figures within his mind, Hill accessed states of consciousness that, until then, were not part of his emotional identity. And by sustaining these meetings, day after day, his frequency began to change. His posture changed. His confidence grew. His mind began to operate from a higher vibration. And the result of this was reflected in matter, in life, in concrete reality. This metaphor of the invisible master reveals one of the most profound truths about manifestation. You don't need to be physically surrounded by elevated examples to change your vibration. What you need is to align yourself energetically with that which you wish to embody. You can imagine with emotional depth the presence of those who represent the wisdom that is lacking, the courage that still frightens, the abundance that seems distant. And more than imagining, you can allow yourself to be guided by these presences as if they were already part of you. Because in a way, they are. Everything that you admire in another human being is a frequency that already exists, even if dormant within you. When Hill talked to Lincoln, Edison, Ford, he wasn't just seeking advice. He was activating within himself the qualities that these names represented. He was vibrating with them, vibrating like them, and consequently, creating a new reality that reflected this vibration. This practice reminds us that manifestation does not depend solely on external resources. It is born from the internal permission to access higher states, to behave, think, and decide like someone who already possesses the qualities they desire. When you connect with these invisible masters, you go beyond the logic of time. You shorten the path. You create a vibrational field where there is no longer a separation between inspiration and identity. And then, without realizing it, you become the master, not through arrogance, but through frequency. Because now you vibrate wisdom, vision, courage. Now you no longer consult only the external. You have become a source. You carry within you the vibration of those who previously seemed distant. And this vibration, once activated, changes everything. Because it is no longer about who inspires you. It is about who you have allowed yourself to be. And reality, faithful to the frequency, begins to respond to this new presence with a precision that seems like a miracle. But it is only resonance, the most silent and powerful of laws. True story, the man who only manifested after abandoning perfectionism. He visualized every day with discipline, with devotion. He created detailed mental images full of light, success, freedom. He affirmed in front of the mirror, meditated before going to sleep, and read all the books on manifestation. But reality seemed to be immobile. Prosperity did not arrive. The flow did not open. There was something he did not understand. Why, even though he did everything right, the results did not come. The answer was not in the technique. It was in the vibration behind the technique, in the silence that supported each visualization. He unconsciously carried a weight, an internal burden, a perfectionism that demanded an impossible version of himself. Every time he sat down to manifest, his mind said, "You are not ready yet." Every mistake from the past came back as proof. Every difficulty was interpreted as a sign that something was still missing. This perfectionism was not a demand for excellence. It was a mask of self-criticism, an attempt to compensate for the feeling of inadequacy that had accompanied him since childhood. He believed that he would only be worthy of manifestation when he became perfect, when he no longer made mistakes, when he was emotionally stable, vibrationally impeccable, spiritually irreproachable. And as contradictory as it may seem, this demand kept him vibrating scarcity, because the message his field was sending was that he was still not enough, that he still needed to correct himself, improve himself, prove himself. The transformation began the moment he let go, not the desire, but the rigid expectation of who he needed to be to deserve that. He began to forgive himself, to accept his mistakes, to see beauty in his vulnerability, to realize that abundance does not require perfection, it requires presence. It requires humanity vibrating with truth. It requires a whole heart, not an impeccable heart. Over time, his practices changed, not in form, but in energy. He continued to visualize, but now with lightness, with self-acceptance. He continued to align himself, but now without pressure. His vibration stopped being tense, it became gentle, and then the field responded. Opportunities arose, paths opened up, money arrived. Not because he became perfect, but because he finally allowed himself to be whole. This true story reveals a profound truth. Often, what blocks manifestation is not the lack of practice, but the excess of internal demands. The desire for control, the inability to allow yourself to be loved, blessed, recognized in the midst of imperfection. And liberation comes when you understand that the universe does not ask you for perfection. It asks for coherence. And coherence begins when you treat yourself with the same compassion that you wish to receive from life. Letting go of perfectionism is opening yourself to the truth of vibration. It is stopping trying to appear ready and starting to feel ready. It is understanding that manifestation does not require an idealized version of you, but the present version, human, in process, and yet worthy, always worthy. Because the most magnetic vibration is not that of perfection. It is the emotional truth that even under construction already emits the frequency of what it wants to experience. And that is what inevitably manifests, because manifestation needs an emotional structure, not just desire. Desire is the beginning. It is the creative impulse. It is the call that springs from the soul when it senses a higher reality. But desire, by itself, does not build, it does not sustain, it does not transform. Because desire, when it does not find an emotional structure to welcome it, becomes unstable. It becomes illusion. It becomes frustration. It becomes another dream that slips through your fingers. The emotional structure is the vibrational foundation of manifestation. It is the internal space that sustains what was requested. Without it, everything that arrives slips away. Everything that approaches is frightening. Everything that flourishes withers. Because the emotional body has no place to shelter the new. It is like trying to build a house on quicksand. There may be beauty in the project, but there is no firmness in the ground. This structure is formed by healing old traumas, by redefining memories that still vibrate with abandonment, scarcity, or rejection. It is strengthened when the nervous system learns to relax in the face of success, instead of sabotaging it. When the body learns to receive without distrust. When the heart allows itself to feel pleasure without guilt. Because without this basis, desire becomes a threat to the unconscious, something that represents more risk than blessing. This is why many, when they achieve something they so desired, suffer an emotional collapse, because the desire arrived, but the internal field was not ready. The money came, but brought anxiety. Love appeared, but awakened fear. The opportunity arose, but activated insecurity. And so, unconsciously, everything is sabotaged, not for lack of merit, but for lack of structure to welcome it with stability. True manifestation happens when desire finds an internal space where it can rest, where it is recognized as familiar, where it does not represent a break, but a continuation of what is already being experienced within. When you become emotionally empowered, desire is no longer a distant promise. It becomes a natural reflex, a logical step, a vibrational consequence. Building this structure does not require haste or perfection. It requires presence. It requires listening. It requires courage to look at what still hurts, not as a failure, but as a field to be prepared. Each emotion acknowledged, each pain welcomed, each belief reinterpreted, is a brick that solidifies the ground of manifestation. And the more solid this ground is, the lighter the flight of what is to come will be. Because in the end, what creates is not just wanting, it is sustaining. It is vibrating constantly. It is being someone who, deep down, already lives the frequency of what you asked for, not as an effort, but as truth. And this truth is what transforms desire into reality, not by magic, but by emotional resonance, by a strengthened identity, by a firm foundation that silently announces to the universe, I am ready. And the universe, as always, listens and responds. The forgotten law of emotional expectation. There is a silent force that acts behind every thought, every word, every request that you send to the universe. This force is not conscious desire. It is emotional expectation. What you expect to happen, even without realizing it. What vibrates behind what you say. Because while thought asks, emotion decides. While the mind visualizes, vibration sustains. And it is this, the silent expectation of what you believe you can receive, that truly creates the reality you live. You can affirm every day that you want to prosper. But if, at the end of these words, what vibrates is doubt, the field feels the doubt. If the body contracts when imagining the achievement, the field feels the contraction. If there is a background of fear that everything will go wrong, it is this fear that shapes the experience. Because the universe does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you really expect to happen. This expectation is not rational. It was formed in past experiences, in emotional repetitions, in memories that have become fixed in the body as patterns. Maybe you want the best, but you have experienced so many frustrations that your emotional system is already silently preparing for another almost. Maybe you visualize abundance, but deep down, you still expect scarcity. You still fear loss. You still prepare for the worst. And the worst comes. Not because you wanted it, but because you expected it. This is the forgotten law, the law of emotional expectation. The law that says that what you vibrate with conviction, not what you say rationally, is what manifests. And this conviction is not manufactured with phrases. It is built with new experiences, with reprogramming, with presence, with the decision to investigate every day what is truly expected of life. Not with guilt, but with curiosity, with compassion. True change begins when you stop just wanting the new and start expecting it, not with anxious hope, but with calm certainty, like someone who knows that what they asked for is already coming, like someone who no longer needs to protect themselves from success, like someone who has finally understood that there is no threat in receiving what they dreamed of. When expectation aligns with desire, the field organizes itself. Synchronicities increase. Answers arrive. Because now there is no longer any conflict between intention and reception. There is a single vibration, clear, powerful. And it is this clarity that opens the portals of the invisible. Not because you asked for more, but because you finally allowed yourself to expect the best. And the best, feeling welcome, comes as a consequence, as a reflection, as a response to a vibration that says, I know it is possible. And more than that, I know it is safe. I know it is mine. I know it is now. 3-step exercise to align intention, emotion, and action. There is a point at which knowledge becomes practice. A point at which learning stops being theory and starts to shape the vibration of everyday life. This point requires a deep alignment between what is desired, what is felt, and what is done. Intention, emotion, and action can no longer walk on separate paths. They need to become one flow, one direction, one field. The first step is to identify the dominant emotion when thinking about the goal, not what you would like to feel, but what you really feel when you think about what you want to manifest. Maybe the desire is abundance, but what emerges is fear. Maybe the goal is freedom, but the feeling is guilt. Maybe the dream is recognition, but what appears is shame. Recognizing this is not a setback. It is a beginning. It is clarity, because you can only transform what you see. You can only reorganize what you allow yourself to feel. The second step is to write down what needs to be felt before the manifestation happens. Ask yourself, what is the feeling that would sustain this desire if it were already real now? Is it peace? Is it security? Is it worthiness? Is it joy? This feeling is the vibrational key. It needs to be practiced, not as a disguise, but as an exercise in incorporation, as a frequency training, as a new energetic signature that, repeated truthfully, begins to inform the field. This is already. The third step is to act every day as if this were already your identity, not in forced gestures, but in small choices that are in tune with this new vibration, acting as if you already feel prosperous, as if you already feel free, as if you already feel worthy. This is not pretending. It is anticipated vibrational coherence. It is creating a bridge between the now and the desired future, not waiting for the external to change first, but being the first to change your own field. These 3 steps are not magic. They are alignments. They create a state of internal congruence that the field recognizes. When the intention is clear, the emotion is coherent, and the action confirms what is being emitted, the universe does not hesitate. It responds, not because it has been convinced, but because there is now enough vibration for the invisible to take shape. This alignment does not require haste. It requires constancy. It is strengthened by presence, by small, conscious choices. by the commitment to not only desire another life, but to begin living it in the present, vibrating the future as if it were the now. And when the now carries the frequency of what you want to live, manifestation ceases to be a mystery. It becomes a consequence, reflection, mirror of what has finally become true in each cell, in each gesture, in each silence lived with intention. The mental model of belief, action, and coherence. There is a silent formula behind all consistent manifestations. It does not reveal itself in extremes. It is not built on instant promises. It is born in aligned vibrational repetition, in the union between what you believe, what you do, and what you sustain emotionally. Belief, action, and coherence are not isolated concepts. They are the three faces of the same vibrational structure, a triad that transforms the invisible into form, with simplicity and depth. Belief is the root. It is the silent system that defines how far you can go, how much you can receive, even what you believe you deserve. This belief does not change just with positive thinking. It transforms with new experiences, with the choice to question old patterns, with the courage to abandon inherited ideas that no longer represent your vibrational truth. A strengthened belief is like fertile soil. It allows any intention to sprout with more strength because the system no longer sabotages itself before the seed even touches the ground. Action is the body of manifestation. It is the visible movement of that which was previously just intention. Action without belief is empty effort. Action without coherence is exhaustion. But action that is born from an aligned belief, from a convinced heart, becomes a bridge. Each choice, each attitude, each step taken towards what one desires creates a clear signal to the field. I am available. I am committed. I am vibrating with what I ask for. And the universe understands this movement because there is nothing clearer than the gesture of someone who acts with faith. And finally, coherence. The vibration that unites belief and action, the invisible glue that keeps the field stable. Coherence is not perfection. It is continuity. It is presence. It is knowing how to maintain a frequency even on days when nothing seems to happen. It is acting as who you already are, even when the external world does not yet confirm it. It is not contradicting yourself vibrationally. It is not asking for love while rejecting yourself. It is not desiring prosperity while cultivating guilt. It is aligning feeling, intention, and behavior as if playing a single note. Clear, clean, powerful. This mental model, taught by Jamil Albuquerque, is not a quick technique. It is a vibrational philosophy. It is a reminder that true manifestation requires a stable field, a field that does not shake with every challenge, that does not doubt with every silence, that does not abandon itself at the first weight. Because when belief, action, and coherence become one energy, the field bends. Reality reorganizes itself. Abundance responds. And not because you have learned yet another formula, but because you have become a frequency, a vibrational identity that now lives, feels, acts, and breathes what was once just a dream. Now it is a path. Now it is presence. Now it is creation. Without effort, only with coherence, the most silent of forces, the clearest of languages, and the most inevitable of manifestations. Why money responds to energetic clarity, not to haste. Money is not just a material resource. It is, above all, a vibrational response. It does not flow because you are running after it. It flows because there is space within you that welcomes it, because there is an energetic clarity that allows it to find rest, direction, and purpose. Haste, on the other hand, makes noise. It speeds up the mind, contracts the body, and confuses the vibration. And money, like all conscious manifestations, retreats in the face of chaos. When the desire for money is born from fear of lack, the field registers urgency. When it is born from comparison, the field registers scarcity. When it is pressured by guilt, the field registers self-sabotage. In all these cases, what is asked for is contradictory to what is vibrating. And the universe, being sensitive to frequency and not to declared intention, only responds to what it feels. And what it feels is confusion, Energetic clarity is not achieved with formulas. It is built with truth. It is the internal transparency of someone who knows what they want, why they want it, and who is willing to become in order to sustain what they have asked for. Clarity is not just knowing the value. It is knowing the meaning. It is understanding that money is an amplifier. It amplifies who you already are. If there is emotional clarity, it amplifies security. If there is chaos, it amplifies imbalance. Therefore, the field responds better to those who already have the structure to welcome money as a natural flow, not as salvation. This clarity also requires honesty about the relationship you have with money. Fear, guilt, anger, desire for control. All of these emotions vibrate simultaneously with your request, and until they are seen, welcomed, and transformed, the request will continue to be intercepted, not by external resistance, but by internal incoherence. When you vibrate clarity, money feels it. It realizes that there is space, that there is direction, that there is a stable, reliable, coherent vibration, and it approaches, not in a hurry, but with precision, with fluidity, because now there is true receptivity. There is congruence. There is enough emotional silence for the flow to be maintained. Hurry, however, is the vibration of doubt. It is the frequency of those who do not believe they can receive with ease, of those who still vibrate urgency as if time were an enemy. And this urgency generates disconnection, because the universe operates in rhythms that do not respond to desperation. They respond to frequency. They respond to presence. They respond to that deep calm that comes from the silent confidence of someone who knows everything that is mine is already coming, and it will come at the exact time that my vibration is capable of sustaining it. Therefore, it is not the speed of your search that defines your abundance. It is the stability of your field. It is the degree of clarity with which you vibrate. It is how clean your heart is of noise and full of certainty. Because money, like all conscious manifestations, is attracted by coherence. And coherence is born when the rush ceases. And in place of the rush, a vibrational truth is installed that says, I already am, and therefore, I can already. And therefore, the universe already sends. The metaphor of the vibrational safe. Imagine that everything you desire already exists. It has already been created. It is already available in a specific vibrational dimension. It is as if there were an invisible safe containing the reality that your heart senses. This safe is not locked due to lack of merit. It is not guarded by some external power that judges your actions. It is closed because your emotional key does not yet match the frequency of what is inside. The vibrational safe is a metaphor that reveals one of the most subtle laws of manifestation. You cannot access a new reality with the vibration of the old one. You may have the map, you may know the codes, you may repeat the affirmations, but if your emotional frequency still vibrates with doubt, fear, anger, or guilt, the key will not turn, the safe will not open. Not because the universe denies you anything, but because it responds exactly to what you emanate. The reality you want to live is already structured in the field. It exists as a potential ready to materialize. But it requires a compatible key, and this key is not forged in a hurry. It is not born out of demand. It is not given to you by someone. It is created little by little in your vibrational transformation, in each transmuted emotion, in each reinterpreted belief, in each reprogrammed thought, in each gesture that reaffirms, I am already what I chose to manifest. This metaphor also reminds us that it is not enough to know what you want. You need to become energetically compatible. You need to reconfigure your inner self so that it can sustain what you ask for. Because what arrives before its time can hurt. It can destabilize. It can be rejected. And the universe, which is profoundly wise, protects you from this, not with denial, but with waiting. Waiting is not punishment. It is care. It is preparation. It is honing your vibrational key. And the more you align yourself with what you want to live, the more you feel that the safe begins to respond, not with immediate clicks, but with subtle signs, synchronicities, intuitions, silent invitations to climb another step, to trust a little more. to sustain one more moment of faith. And then, without warning, the key turns. The safe opens, and that which seemed distant reveals itself, not as a surprise, but as confirmation, because that which seemed locked away was never far away. It was simply kept until your vibration said, "Now yes, now I am ready. Now I can receive without fear, without sabotage, without escape. Now there is space. Now there is harmony. Now there is vibrational maturity." And the universe, upon feeling this, moves. Not because you asked more loudly, but because finally, your energy found the frequency of that which was already yours. And the safe, silently, opened.